Hey guys, just wanted to give my quick overview on the, as far as I'm aware, 6 new maps coming in v30. Anticipating this to drop the weekend of the 28th of February or 1st of March. That's anticipated, obviously, everything's subject to change. That's when we're expecting it to come, but going to be around about this time. So I've taken some screenshots off the developer fork of the game of the new maps to show you them first of all and talk you through them, but then I've also highlighted where the nations are to give an idea of kind of probably where I would spawn or some ideas for spawns and talk through maybe why those spawns might be a good idea. So let's jump into it. First up we have the Alps map. So this is one giant block, no water, completely landlocked, and you can't quite see it on this screenshot, but it's about maybe 60% mountain. You can kind of see it under here. You've got a band of mountain basically going from kind of here, cutting across, and it stretches all the way down here and kind of loops in a crescent around here. So you've got flatlands here, and then you've got some flatlands to the northwest corner here. All the nations spawn in the middle, all in the mountains. So kind of intriguing. I think probably you're going to get the majority of players would be spawning in the southeast corner. Like, people just love to spawn on open green grass. And obviously the majority of people aren't going to know where the nations spawn. Remember, like when you're spawning in, you can't really see the nations, right? Their little circles are the same size as the bots. Obviously bear in mind that nations can spawn approximately in these areas, right? They're never going to spawn like always exactly where these are, but it's roughly kind of, imagine like a hydrogen bomb circle around each of these numbers. That's roughly where you would expect to see these nations spawn. But they're always going to spawn kind of in the center here. So probably pretty tempting to maybe spawn like kind of on the edge of the mountains, maybe like here. So you can pick up some easy bots in the grassland and then hopefully grab a couple of structures from nations. Alternatively, you could spawn right in the center of the nations. Actually, nations aren't particularly threatening. The issue with doing this though is that you're really going to struggle to get any bot kills, to be honest. But you're not going to be waiting very long before you're hitting nations, albeit into mountains. So probably you're going to be on one city attacking a nation that's also on one city, but once you've got a second city off one of the nations, you might be on a bit of a steamroll. You might end up with 2 or 3 nations killed. Not quite sure. To be honest, I'm not sure I will ever play this map, simply because there's no water access, which means you're just going to get locked out, right? This is quite a big map. You're going to have a lot of people just locked, and you're going to have completely fixed borders, no way of changing your borders except a way of attacking someone, obviously. And you're going to get a lot of quite stalemate-y stuff. Obviously, if you can snowball off the nations, you can kind of dominate the game, same as any other game. But the other big kind of kicker for me on a map like this is that you can't send out targeted attacks with boats, right? Every attack that you do will be a global attack, which means defense posts are going to be gross. They're going to be like disproportionately valuable, because once you've got defense posts like lining your entire border, and the only attack that you'll ever receive is a global attack, like that attack is going to go very, very slowly. So kind of a weird one. It's a different style of map. We've not had one like this before. I mean, I'll probably end up playing it once or twice just to give it a go. I would probably spawn maybe on the edge here, or I might just go for a YOLO center of the nation spawn and try and get 3 or 4 cities early. Because if you did that, everyone else is going to be totally stuck on 1 or 2 cities. You could hoover if you picked up like 4 nations early. So that's the Alps. Let's move on. So this is Hawaii, which we actually played on the beta test. As you can see from the numbers, this is where the nations spawn. Immediately my eye gets drawn to the center here. I think a lot of people are going to get drawn to the big island in the southeast because, well, it's big. And secondly, people are going to get drawn to the corner over here because, well, it's small. People like either a lot of bot access or they like to be really far away and they think like, oh, there's safety from being far away. So I think you'll get tons of people spawning up here and you get tons of people spawning down there. The best spawn, without a doubt, is somewhere around here. where you can easily boat out and potentially have access to 4 nations. From here, yeah, you're golden. Obviously getting a land percentage victory on this map, it's a bit of a nightmare. You have to get onto the main island. So you would probably, if you could get big enough here, bearing in mind there's going to be so many players spawning down here, none of them are going to get particularly big quickly. If you were to spawn here, kind of do reasonably well here, get a couple of structures off nations, control this area, you could potentially boat across here quite early. You would be so much bigger than anyone else here. You could hoover the main island, and from there it would be very straightforward to them. Just a couple of hydrogen bombs and you'd get a land percentage win. That's probably how I would play this map. I think there's absolutely no question that this is the best spawn. This is a trap, simply because there's just so many people are going to spawn here. There's also a massive mountain in the middle of the main island here, which does slow things down a lot. And it's huge. It's actually the majority of the island, so it's just the edges that are green grass. So that's Hawaii. Oceania, this one looks quite interesting. Look how many tiny, tiny, tiny island nations are. Shout out to the United States that's in Hawaii. But you've got like the Solomon Islands, Vanuatu, Papua New Guinea, like there's so many tiny ones here. New Caledonia, I think. So it's kind of tempting to potentially go for something wild, like a little island spawn here. Obviously you're going to get no bots. And all these nations are going to take a while to build anything because they're also not going to get any bots. But I think a lot of players are just not going to know. So you could potentially end up with like 3 or 4 cities with no real land, right? You'd be like pixels on each of these islands, executing each nation one by one. Like there's 6 nations here, 6 nations in this area. I don't think very many people are going to know that there's that many nations there. Potentially maybe you would spawn like here because there's actually no nations here. Obviously remember these nations can move around, and maybe this nation could spawn over here, maybe this nation spawns over here, you know, it's approximate. But generally speaking, like New Zealand's always going to spawn in New Zealand, Papua New Guinea's always going to be in Papua New Guinea and so on. But yeah, maybe these nations would move around slightly, but there's probably a world where you could spawn here, kill a couple of bots, while sending boats out over here and then grabbing these nations one by one. I think you could get really big doing this. The other really interesting spawn is, of course, Southeast Asia. Very dense nation density here, and it's also very flat land. So quite an interesting one. I think it's going to be a real, like, just a bloodbath. I think a lot of people would spawn here because it's kind of corner of the map. People love corner spawns. Corner spawn with water access, people are going to be all over that. I think it's going to be very, very busy up here. I would probably try it, but not totally convinced. Definitely like an Indonesian, Philippine spawn somewhere in this kind of area here. 4 nations, all very accessible in a circle here. I think this would be a very, very solid spawn, and you would then have the advantage of being able to boat up into the absolute bloodbath that's happening to your north. Australia, I think it's a bait similar to Hawaii. There are 5 nations there, so somebody kind of on the southern side of the continent could do very, very well. Is Australia a continent? It's not, right? Is it? Just a big island? I don't know. Anyway, I think if you spawn on the south of Australia, yeah, you could definitely do pretty well, but I suspect a lot of people are going to be spawning on the mainland here, and a lot in Southeast Asia. I wonder if there's a play to be made from a kind of Papua New Guinea area, and I think you could actually get huge because there's 6 nations here that are very accessible, and I think not many people are going to realize that these are actually individual nations. So Oceania looks quite an intriguing map. Also, in terms of like overall meta, none of the gaps between these islands are that big, so it's not going to be like a Baikal or a Strait of Hormuz where you can be locked out by a gajillion warships. Like if you dropped an atom bomb there, if there were warships on patrol here, and you dropped like a couple of atom bombs here, you would definitely boat across that gap in time. And from here, it's this island hop, and you can island hop pretty much all the way up to Southeast Asia. Yeah, you easily can actually. So yeah, I think the map is quite accessible. I don't think it's going to be like a horrible bunker map. Obviously New Zealand's quite protected. Hawaii is comically far away from everything. Maybe a challenge to spawn in Hawaii on this map. God, it's bad enough on the North America map. Imagine this one. Look, you're half the map away from the next piece of land. That could be a pretty intriguing spawn up there. Trader's dream. Alright, let's move on to the next one, which is the box. Ultimate troll map. very similar to the Alps, except instead of there being a massive mountain range, it is just completely green grass. I think this is just diabolical. There are more nations on this map compared to the Alps. Far more spread out as well. There's one corner one. I don't know if this gets like randomly allocated to a corner or if it's always in the corner. It's literally called like the Corner Nation, Corner Defender or something like that. Yeah, similar. I mean, yeah, listen to my feedback on the Alps map. No water, which means you get very locked into your spawn location, totally randomly dependent on how good or bad your neighbors are, how belligerent or peaceful your neighbors are. You actually want belligerent neighbors when you're locked in, right? Because you want people to be like getting agitated and attacking their neighbors so that then they become weakened so that you can attack them. Well, the last thing you want is for everyone to just be sitting around doing absolutely nothing, which is what you're going to see a lot of on a locked out map like this. In terms of spawns, I think the nations are really spread out. So, you know, somewhere around here, you've got 5 nations around you. You're not going to get access to all of them, but based on who else spawns next to you, you could figure out, okay, I can work my way towards 2 or 3 of the nations. I think anywhere in this center is fine. You're going to get access to 3 or 4 nations. Definitely avoid the corners. Generally, good advice for most maps. This map looks diabolical. Speaking of diabolical, Trader's Dream. Yeah, you got 4 nations each on the main island. In the game that I spawned, we had 3 on the east here and 2 on the west. I don't know if that's random. I don't know, maybe it would be 3 west, 2 east sometimes. I really don't know. Maybe sometimes you get 1 on the central island. I'm not sure. These islands are far enough apart that it seems unlikely that like a nation could somehow spawn over here or something like that. Like you would get 2 on one of these islands. I don't think that could happen. So maybe this is the split that just happens. In terms of where I would spawn, I mean, I think the 2 main islands are bait. I think that's where the majority of people are going to be. Those and the corners. I think your best bet is probably to spawn on one of these medium-sized islands and try and contest the nations on 2 of them. So yeah, something like spawning here and then immediately boating across and then trying to get structures off both nations. Doing that would then enable you to probably win one and then both islands, and that would give you a massive advantage to then boat into one of the main islands and contest. This map's disgusting. I think this map could be absolutely gross. I'm not sure I'll ever play it. It's too similar to Surrounded, which I only ever played once, and that game was more than an hour long. It's just not my style. I don't enjoy it, but I know a lot of people do, so just letting you know how it looks. Here's one that's way more up my street. This is, God, I can't even remember the name. It's Russian. It is Yenisei. Far fewer nations, very few nations. Lots of water access. Really intriguing map, this one. Mostly flat. Almost everything here is flat. There's a little bit of plains, kind of hills, but I don't think there's any mountains on the map. Yeah, this one should be really interesting. In terms of good spawns, yeah, I mean, between 2 nations, right? You're not going to get... You could potentially try and get access to 3, but I think that's just greedy. Realistically, yeah, you're probably going to go like somewhere around here to get access to these 2, or somewhere central here to try and jump across to get these 2, or down here, you know, to get these 2. This isn't going to work. You're not going to get over to get both of these. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, close to any one of these nations, I think you're going to be fine. Northeast corner is a bait. Kind of eastern side of the center is a bit of a bait. It looks kind of appealing. There's lots of boats. It's quite flat. That maybe the southwest corner might look appealing to some people. There is a river out, but yeah, 1 warship here and you're stuck. So I would probably focus, like with almost every map in the game, on a central spawn. If you can get a central spawn next to 2 nations with water access, like, you're laughing. That's like the dream start. So somewhere maybe here or here or here, I think is probably best for Yenisei. And that is it. Those are the 6 maps that I'm aware of that are coming in v30. Obviously lots of changes coming. Sadly, I won't be here to play the launch, but I'll be back pretty shortly afterwards. And look forward to giving you all some more content when I get back. All right. Very short editor inclusion here. I've just realized that Oceania is actually in the current client. It's just not in the map rotation. I've certainly never come across it. Maybe somebody could let me know in the comments if they've ever actually played that map. It's definitely not in the current map rotation. I've never played it. And I've played quite a few games. So hopefully, because it looks like a pretty interesting map, hopefully it is going to be added into the map rotation. And I haven't wasted my time reviewing it. Anyway, see you soon.